That space heater is amazing. And then to start, I'll just be like, all right, Karmel, you ready to rock and roll? Say whatever you want to end, and then I'll just be like, give us any shout outs to where you want us to go, if any, and then we'll say goodbye. And
sounds fantastic.
All right, Karmel, you ready to rock and roll?
I am ready.
Let's do this. All right, so just quickly introduce yourself here so we know a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, and then we can go from there.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I'm a mother and an entrepreneur. Those are the two things that take up most of my time. I've got 8 kids and 3 businesses. Some take more time than others, wow. Kids and the businesses. Yeah, wow. We had 7 biological children. We adopted our 8th. And we've been building businesses for 2 decades together. No. When you marry an entrepreneur, you become an entrepreneur. I started out as a social worker, and I thought I'd, try and save the world through social work. Then I married an entrepreneur, and now we're trying to help the world through entrepreneurship, which I found to be even more effective. Well, I don't know that I could quantify, but very effective also for changing the world.
So I know Momni is one of those businesses, the piano business. Is that still running?
That's right, yeah.
The third one, what is that? I wasn't aware of any third business, so describe what that one is.
We have a music conservatory, Utah Piano Conservatory. No We've got over 100 piano students and a faculty.
Wow.
We're a big music family.
Dang, so your husband runs that, or you guys both
I run that. We both jointly run the piano store, and I run the Momni app.
Dang. It's a lot. Do you have any time to do anything else?
I'm pretty particular about how I manage my time, but yes, always pressed, always very intentional.
Yeah, that's the best way.
It's intense. It's working.
It's the best way to be as an entrepreneur, I feel like. But all right, Karmel. So I have a random question, just because I like to get it kicked off with just a random question to make it light and fun. So the one that I have for you is, for those in the back of their heads that want a family, right? They want to have a functioning family, and like you said, you had 7 biological kids. So if they want a big family, what is one thing that you tell them, or advice that you would give them if they're going to have as many kids as you have? What's that one thing that you say to them?
Be ready to work.
Ready to work.
Be ready to work. Be ready to hustle, and hope you have a spouse who's going to work with you, because it is not for the faint of heart.
For real.
And it's super rewarding and enjoyable, and oh man, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Really?
But it's a lot of work.
Was that the goal at the... Was
the
that
goal
always,
to have a lot of children?
Was that always the vision, or was that just kind of something that happened?
No, actually, a funny story. I knew a woman who had 5 boys growing up. She was one of my youth leaders at a girls' camp. Sister McClellan. I remember her name so clearly. And she had 5 boys, and I pitied the woman. I was like, wow. Oh, her life must be so miserable. She has 5 kids, and they're all boys. And I thought I would never have a bunch of kids like that, and boys, even to be worse. If you would have told me at the time I'd have 6 boys plus 2 girls, I would have thought you were nuts.
Wow.
So no, it was never the plan, but
here we are.
It's perfect.
Dang.
Yeah.
All right, so to get in the bulk of the interview here with what I want to ask, the majority of it is just going to be a walkthrough of your entrepreneurial journey with Momni. So to start things off, I did research on how it started from a podcast called Woman. It was something venture, but it was
She Ventures.
She Ventures.
Yes.
She got a little bit into the story of how it started, and then obviously on your site there's a story of how it started. So for us here, kind of give a quick run through again of the whole why Momni is even a thing. What was the idea in the beginning, and then maybe what people don't know about the beginnings of Momni. If you could just start there for us, and then we can go from there.
Okay, we're almost to our 3rd anniversary, so we're going back in time, 2017. It was middle of March, actually. My husband and I, we were succeeding in our other businesses, and we could see on the horizon we're going to have some we're gonna have some excess time and money, and
Yeah.
there came a point where I had a choice to make. Well, what am I going to do? Am I going to lavish that wealth upon ourselves and our family, or what does the future hold? So as we started thinking about that, I, at the same time, learned about the global childcare crisis, and I had a pretty unique life experience as I learned about the global childcare crisis, where the idea of Momni came to my mind in such a way that it felt like one of those moments where a life call comes from
when you started doing or realizing that crisis, was that something from a news article? What was that initial like, oh, I found out about this and it's horrible? Do you know that story? Can you remember back that?
I certainly can remember that story. Yeah, if you want the whole story, it's all in this book I wrote called Circle
That's
Up.
the other thing. I was like, I wish I could read that. I could understand a lot more.
It's, I didn't learn about it from the news. I went on a trip. I was studying Mother Teresa at the time.
Oh, wow.
And I learned that she went on an annual spiritual retreat. And I thought, well, that sounds amazing. I want to do that. And so I set up this sort of spiritual experiment for myself to do that. And it was on that trip where I said this unintended prayer, asking God to direct my life and what should we do with our resources. And I specifically said, if you would show to us, to me, the greatest problem in the world that we have the capacity to help solve and the solution, we would do that.
Yeah.
We're people of faith and just feel like we want to serve God and others. And I had a pretty unique experience where images came to my mind of women from different nations, and it was as if the prayer vault of heaven sort of opened for just a minute, and I got to experience a little bit of their emotion. What came to my mind was they were suffering from a lack of childcare, and motherhood was no longer a joy for them. And then later, it's like, is this really a thing? Did I just like become schizophrenic or like lose my mind?
Crazy thought,
But I later researched it online. I looked up something like worldwide babysitting challenges, and I learned there's a term for this. It's called the global childcare crisis. It's recognized currently in every single nation of the world. And in addition to that, the UN predicts that over the next decade, 1 billion women will enter the workforce. So it's an epic problem. So simultaneously, as I had this experience, 2 words came to my mind: Uber mom. And with it, sort of this like burst of understanding or inspiration that if there's this problem, we could solve this by using technology to bring mothers together.
Yeah.
I've learned that the problem with the global childcare crisis is a supply issue. We don't need to have a supply issue of care. There's moms on every single street corner in the whole world. But it's difficult to connect. Technology brings us together. So we got to work.
So
we've been doing it for 3 years.
So knowing that Mimi's Cafe was where you told your husband about that idea, right?
I came back from that trip about 3 days later. I didn't think I should mention it over the phone. So I waited until we had our next date together, and then I laid it upon my husband. I mean, how do you say to your spouse, I think we should launch the Airbnb of childcare? Like, how do you even get those words out, right? Like, what? Like, what? We own a piano store. What are you talking about, wife? But to his credit, I mean, I shared all the details, and he was like, right, okay, let's do this. Dang. And we took that leap of faith and just jumped off the cliff. And the first thing we did, I mean, we don't know how to launch a tech company. True. I mean, bring us a piano to restore and we'll teach you. I mean, we can do pianos, but tech company? So we had to start learning. The first thing we did was just reach out to, we knew a few people in the Silicon Slopes tech industry. I think we'd done their pianos or something. Started asking questions. How do you build an app? How do you launch a tech company? We got training. We thought we were pretty deep into entrepreneurship, having been entrepreneurs for almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
But this was different.
Completely different.
Completely different. Yeah, a scalable company where you need to get investment. It's just totally different than a local retail. I mean, our retail business is significant, but it's not this.
Yeah, that's true. So going along with that, when you decided to reach out to these people and network and find out how this works, when it sounds like from what I know that you have mentors that were business mentors. I don't know if these were tech specific, but my question is when you say that you didn't know about the tech market and you had no idea how to launch an app, when you made that decision that this is what you need to do, this has to happen, this is my calling. when you found out you had to build that, what was the first thing that you did to find out who can build this? I mean, there's a little section on that podcast where I was like, yeah, we found a couple developers that were hired, and I would do it this way if I went back. But in the beginning, when you first wanted to really get this built and show investors, or just scale from there, what did you do from that Mimi's Cafe time to when you actually got it built? What did you look for? How did you look for these people? Was it the Silicon Slopes people? Like, talk about how you found the tech when you weren't the techie, I guess.
Well, what I did is made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
I made a lot of mistakes, of course. I mean, when you don't know what you're doing, you ask a lot of questions, but you don't even know the right questions to ask. Fortunately, I got some really good training from John Richards and his Startup Ignition training. That was invaluable. He taught me about vesting. So fortunately, I didn't make the vesting mistake.
What's vesting?
Vesting. You need to know about vesting if you're going into entrepreneurship. That means, like, if you bring on people onto your team and you're going to, and another thing he taught me was you never split a company 50-50. That's like death to a future investment, which from my mind, I was like, well, if you're going partners, isn't 50-50 like a great idea? Horrific idea.
Seriously.
Yes, that's one of the biggest mistakes. And then if you're to split your company, like, well, let's be 50-50 partners and let's take 50-50 equity. Horrible mistake. And vesting is when you partner with somebody and you set terms on the equity. So it means like if you have a 2-year vesting, or like traditional vesting with a 1-year cliff, means you have to stay with the company for at least 1 year or you get nothing. Because if you have a partner and they walk after 7 months, they could take 50% of your company with you and basically your company's dead.
That's true.
No investor's ever going to invest in you. And then you get another partner, and if they take a chunk of your equity, and you just keep having people take chunks of your business without fully contributing for being in it for the long term. So that puts a lot of companies under before they really even get started.
Yeah.
So a mistake I made with developers is hiring long distance, not being able to remotely, not being able to work closely with them, and not vetting them fully ahead of time, just going off of a single referral, and not having another developer vet their work. We lost a lot of money and a lot of time up front. And what I've done differently since is I always have 2 developers now, so that they can. Because I'm not a tech person, so I can't screen or vet or quality control the work of a developer.
True.
And so now, rather than having 1 full-time developer, I would always have 2 part-time. Or if I could only afford getting started, if I could only afford 1 part-time, I'd have 2 quarter-time. So that they can just give me some dual feedback.
That's true. Critique the other person's like workflow or whatever. I feel like it's just there's another mind on like the project. But for the story's sake, when you say that this is what you did, was this the very beginning? Was that what you did? You found these remote developers when you said, I need something to show for Momni, and now I'm going to go out remote. Is that what you did first?
You know what the first thing I did was? It was so wrong. I thought, okay, we need. It's going to be a big tech company. It's going to be global. Like, this is going to be huge. We need investment.
First.
So the first thing I did actually was reach out to venture capitalists, and it's now kind of laughable and embarrassing. But I just Googled like how to get investment for a tech company, and that was the first time I'd heard the term venture capitalist, and I started listening to all of the podcasts, like how I built this, and learn about vulture capitalists and all the stories. I was like, okay, I'm just going to start sending inquiries to investors. And only 1 responded. Bless his heart. And I still know his name to this day, and I've met him since, and I just hope he doesn't remember my name. Because that's not what you do first. You do not reach out to investors first. You've got to build a team, you've got to build a product, you've got to get it to revenue before investors even want to talk to you.
That's true.
And I hadn't yet been trained in that process. I very quickly, though, I reached out to investors for a few days, and then I quickly got mentoring and learned about lean startup principles. And that's where every entrepreneur needs to begin, is with lean startup training.
So in the very first beginning days of Momni, what was the goal in the first month, 2 months, 3 months? What was your mentality with Momni? Were you learning, or were you trying to find people that could be the Momni moms? What was the goal in the first like 3 to 6 months, first month to 3 months? Like, what was that initial mentality that you had with it?
Well, I thought the first goal was to build a team and a product. And I learned as I started learning lean startup principles that the first goal is actually to vet your idea. You've got to do research and proven concept that people are actually going to take action with the MVP, the minimum viable product that you actually produce. So I did a lot of research interviews. Until I stopped learning anything new. And we had a really high, it's called wow factor, like the rating you get for how enthusiastic people are about your product and how willing they are to actually give you money for it or commit to money once the product is built. So I started with research, then we started building the product, building the team simultaneously. It took us quite a while to get to revenue.
Really?
Yeah, about 18 months. When I started, I thought, oh yeah, we're gonna have a product and revenue in about, my goal was 4 or 5 months. Let's just get to revenue. Let's get this done. We've got world problems to solve.
Move fast.
Everything has taken longer and been more expensive than I anticipated.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I want to bring up at this point that I've done research on is you said that you were the Airbnb of moms is a thought that you had, or the Uber mom. Yeah. So knowing that, when Airbnb obviously came out, Uber came out, no one would have thought that the businesses that they are would have been as huge as they are, because let's hop into a stranger's car or let's live in a stranger's home. And
crazy.
This is kind of similar because
this is even more crazy
because you're giving your kid away.
We're talking about kids.
So
you're not giving your kid away.
You're not giving your kid away. You know what I mean, though. So my question is, when in the beginning and when you started getting that revenue, was there backlash, like with people on the internet or wherever it might have been, that said like, who would trust like this person that lists themselves as a caregiver, and then you drop your kid off for a day with this stranger that you just met? Was there anything like that in the beginning? And if there was, how did you work past that with Momni and their branding? Like, tell us about that aspect of the business.
Absolutely, every single day, and
really?
Still in the beginning, and still every day, every other day for sure. Once a week, I have people have that conversation with me, or others that I hear about. I have people tell me that I'll fail almost weekly, and wow. I have other people tell me just as often, more often, that this is epic, so needed. Why haven't we had this for a decade? This is so long overdue. Yeah. I have single moms cry on my shoulder and hug me for way too long in awkward ways because they're so grateful for Momni and everything in between. I mean, I've heard that if you have an idea that everyone loves, it's probably not a great idea, because the best ideas are a bit polarizing. I mean, think about Uber. Sure. It's a love and hate relationship, and so many companies are, especially in the research phase. If everyone is just telling you exactly what you want to hear, you might want to dig a little bit deeper in your research.
Yeah, that's true. So,
and how do I deal with it? Well, yeah, there just is no fail. Like, the thought never even crosses my mind to stop or to pause or to, I mean, I listen to their ideas because I want to hear everything everyone has to say so that we can adapt the product, change the marketing, change the messaging. Like, trust and safety is obviously our biggest concern as well. Momni's by moms for moms. I've got 8 kids. Of course, I understand the safety aspects. Yeah. But what I want to hear of why people are so worried and concerned, how can we change our messaging to calm their fears and help them understand the product better? Because actually, people aren't dropping their kids off at random strangers. They're meeting up, they're getting to know each other, they're interviewing each other, they're forming Momni circles, they're vetting each other, there's ratings, reviews, references, the background checks. Like, this is not just drop your kid off at some stranger's house.
Yeah, that's true. So to help people understand that, how much of Momni is people that know each other before, or on the other side of the spectrum, they just get on, they need someone now, and then they're just like, this is someone that's available. Let me just go and meet this person. Do you keep stats like that in depth with your company of how many people might be interconnected already? and then the people that aren't, and how many on each side makes up the percentage of your customers? Do you know that at
I
all?
don't have an exact percentage, but it's definitely a mix of both.
Really?
It's definitely a mix of both. Absolutely.
So,
and I think it depends on need. So those individuals who have a really high need for childcare resources, they don't have family in the area. They don't have, during the day you can't get teenage babysitters. And there's issues and problems that come up with daycares. A lot of moms don't need full-time childcare. And so if you don't need full-time, then you can't really get a daycare. So when you have a higher need, you're willing to be more flexible with your childcare solutions.
Okay. So to move on in the interview here with the next phase when you got venture capital, before we move on to that, knowing what you said and knowing what you know going through that whole process of this kind of phase, if you were to advise anybody, a younger entrepreneur that wants and is interested in doing something like this, from your experience, what would you tell them to do? Say if they're in the sphere of not knowing tech but love that market, what would you tell them to do to be as successfully, what's the word I'm trying to say, the highest percentage of success? What do you tell them to do when they haven't really started anything? They just know they have an idea, they have ideas, and they're looking for ideas and they want to move into this space. What do you tell them?
Dive deep into the tech community. I would say try and become a part of an accelerator or some sort of training program so that you can get high-level mentors, but also so that you can surround yourself with other founders.
Where would you find like the accelerators? Would you go to Google and just type in local ones, or how would you find them?
I've applied to probably over 100 of them. I've participated in them in Utah and in Silicon Valley. They're in Texas, New York, they're everywhere. There's some that are online. And I would ask for recommendations from other entrepreneurs. Like if you asked me, I'd say go to Boot Up Ventures, go to Startup Ignition, go to RevRoad. They have free training. So you need to build around yourself a community of founders.
Okay. So kind of along with that, the venture capital came in like 2018, right?
That's right.
2018.
December of 2018.
So obviously a big step for Momni, because now you have a lot more resources. You have connections with the venture capitalists that are helping you out. So I also read that it was very unlikely for women to get any venture capital in a business that they founded and run. For your experience in trying to get this money to run Momni, grow Momni into what you see it as coming, what would you tell someone that, again, is confused about the venture capital space to do to optimize their chances of getting venture capital and making that whole process, if they have to engage with venture capitalists, easier? What kind of things do you just tell those people before you even get involved in venture capital?
It's a similar process. You need to go to a lot of events and get training. Like you can't just go and pitch to a venture capitalist and think that you are a part of the club and the party and know what they want to hear and have to say. It's a pretty specific presentation that they want to hear. There's very clear number of slides and what should be on those slides and what they want to hear and what you should focus on. So I would suggest going to pitch events. You can Google these through like meetup websites, or like when I went to Silicon Valley for an accelerator, I just Googled the local area to see what entrepreneurial pitch events were happening, and I attended many of them just to observe. Because at pitch events, you not only get to see the founder, the entrepreneur pitch and see what's on their slides, but you also get the most valuable part is the Q&A afterwards from the investors. And you need to take notes and ask yourself, how would I answer that question? And just keep attending pitch events. There's lots of them here in Utah Valley, in Utah. And just focus on learning first. Learn and ask questions. And I would always try and go and talk to the investors afterwards and ask them for advice and build relationships and ask them if they know of any other pitch events that I could attend. Be a student. Be a humble student. Take notes. I take photos of the other entrepreneurs' slides so that I can,
take note.
Think of ideas later, get some inspiration.
True. So with these investors, did you notice any sort of questions that were similar from entrepreneur to entrepreneur? Were there any questions about money, purpose, the questions about the founder? What did you see as kind of a general question from these Q&As, at least? Not like explain your business, tell us the revenue model and stuff like that. From Q&As, what was the question that came up the most generally when they had the floor to ask whatever? Was it more about the brand, the money, or the person?
It's really all over the place, and you never know what an investor is going to bring up. I would say the number one thing you should be really prepared to talk about, though, is your numbers, your revenue model, your projections. Where are you going to be a year from now? How is this going to scale? Will I be able to 10x my investment? You need to know the numbers behind your business model and plan to be asked about numbers.
So also along with this position that Momni's in now, what changed when you got that venture capital? When, before the December 2018 and then January 2019, what was the goal at this point? Describe kind of this 6-month span of where Momni was, and then after venture capital hit, where you guys were planning to go and stuff like that.
Yeah, capital's a big deal. It helps a lot. It changed a lot for us. We had some significant PR before capital that helped us to have a great burst of traction and helped us to start getting users across the nation. But inserting capital really helped us to move from just mostly a Utah market, to being able to develop 6 strong markets across the nation and users in all 50 states. We were able to start experimenting with Facebook ads and digital marketing, bring that customer acquisition cost down. We were able to bring on more developers and then put out an iOS and Android app. We were able to bring on more leadership. It really changes everything.
So along with that, when you say PR, I did the research on how you would get in touch with these firms and just say, here's what I have, cover it if you want, but this is pretty cool based on what people are saying. And you said that was big for you guys to just initially start getting that traction. So for going back, thinking about that time of when PR was big for you guys, and then just testimonials of mouth to mouth was obviously another one that I read. What would you do if that wasn't such an influence on your business? Say PR wasn't as big as it was, mouth to mouth referrals wasn't as big as it was. Tell us about how you probably would have gone to get engagement in the beginning, leading up to the capital. Would you have done the same thing, tried to get PR? What would you have done in this phase if that wasn't something that really exploded Momni?
We'd probably do what we're doing now, which we're still focusing on PR, and we're still doing a lot of things that we have been all along. We've tried a massive shotgun approach to marketing and tried quite a lot of things and tracked all of them to see what works and what doesn't. What we're focusing on right now is influencers and affiliates. And that's our new area of focus that we're experimenting with. We probably would have done that more in the beginning had the PR not been so successful for us. But we had a huge surge of PR, and that really helped us get to investment.
So after you got the capital, right? What was one of the hardest things that happened in Momni, and how did you get over that? The one that you can remember.
I think one of the hard things for me as a leader is learning how to hire and build a team. When I first had some capital, I had some resources, and there's an opportunity to bring on quite a lot of people quite quickly. And I was really originally focused on skills. Like, I need the right skill sets. And I think if I were to go back and do that again, I think I would focus first and foremost on vision and mission. Who are the people I can bring on? They've got to have basic skill set, but I have learned over the course of the last 3 years that I want to build a company first and foremost built on culture and vision and mission. People who are really on board with the idea of helping to solve a global crisis. And skills can be developed, but it's difficult to develop buy-in to a company